I didn't open the envelope in the car. It sat on the passenger seat the whole drive, thin and unimpressive, like something that couldn't possibly carry enough weight to justify the priest's shaking hands. I kept glancing at it at stoplights, expecting it to move, to prove it was something more than paper. It never did. Cedar Hill storage was quieter than I expected. No security gate, just a row of dim overhead lights and a narrow office with the blinds drawn. It felt like a place people came to forget things on purpose. Locker 9 was near the back. I stood in front of it longer than necessary. The key the priest had given me was cold in my hand, heavier than it should have been. I thought about my father's message again, come straight home. We need to talk. Not please. Not it's important. Just a statement, like he still expected me to follow instructions. I turned the key. The door rattled as it lifted. The sound echoed more than it should have, as if the space was larger than it looked. Inside, there were no boxes stacked high, no chaotic remnants of a life. Just a single plastic container and a flat, sealed folder resting on top of it. It didn't look hidden. It looked arranged. That was what unsettled me. I crouched down and opened the container first. Inside were old photographs, bundled with a rubber band that had dried and cracked. I slid it off carefully, flipping through them one by one. My mother was in all of them. Younger, not by a little, by decades. Her hair darker, her posture different, like she hadn't yet learned how to carry whatever weight she ended up carrying. In some, she stood beside a man I didn't recognize. In others, she held a baby. I stared at the baby longer than I should have. There was nothing distinct about it. Babies rarely look like themselves. But something about the way she held it, closer, tighter than I remembered her ever holding me, made something in my chest shift. I set the photos down. The folder was heavier than the envelope, official, structured, the kind of thing that didn't rely on emotion to make its point. I opened it slowly. A birth certificate sat on top. Not a copy, not a reprint. The paper was aged in a way that couldn't be faked easily. The ink slightly faded, the edges softened. I read it once, then again. The name wasn't mine. Not just slightly different, completely different. First, middle, last. The date of birth matched. The place matched. Everything matched except the identity itself. My hands didn't shake. I noticed that. It felt like something that should happen, but it didn't. Underneath the certificate were adoption papers. Legal, stamped, signed. My mother's name was there. My father's too. The dates were close. Too close. Close enough that there wasn't time for the story I'd always been told. I sat back against the cool metal wall of the unit, the documents resting in my lap. For a while, I didn't try to piece it together. I just let the contradiction sit there. Then I saw the last item. Not typed. Handwritten. I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately. She had a way of pressing harder at the ends of words, like she didn't fully trust them to stay put. I unfolded it. If you are reading this, it means I didn't find the right way to tell you. I stopped there for a moment. Not because of the words, but because of the tone. It wasn't apologetic. It was measured, like she had already accepted that this would happen without her. I kept reading. She wrote about fear. Not in dramatic terms, but in quiet, practical ones. About decisions made quickly. About someone else's child, a situation that wasn't meant to become permanent. She never used the word swap. She didn't have to. She described a hospital. A moment when something went wrong, or was allowed to go wrong. A choice made in a space where no one was paying enough attention. And then she described me. Not as the baby in the photographs, as the one who left with her. I folded the letter back slowly. There wasn't a sudden collapse. No surge of emotion. Just a steady, uncomfortable clarity that settled in piece by piece. I wasn't who I thought I was. But more than that, I wasn't who they told me I was. I closed the locker carefully, like I was putting something back into place, even though nothing had been returned. The drive home felt shorter. When I walked in, my father was already in the living room, sitting upright, hands resting on his knees. Not pacing, not anxious, waiting. He looked at my hands first, then at my face. "You went," he said. I nodded. There was a pause, not long but deliberate. "What did he give you?" I set the folder on the table between us. Not sliding it toward him. Just placing it there, within reach. He didn't touch it. "That wasn't his to give," he said. His voice was steady, controlled in a way that felt practiced. "Was it yours?" I asked. Another pause. It was handled, he said. That word again. Not explained. Not defended, just positioned as final. I sat down across from him. For who? I asked. His eyes shifted just slightly. Not enough that most people would notice. But I did, for you, he said. I nodded like I understood, but I didn't respond. The silence stretched longer this time. He didn't fill it, neither did I. Eventually, he reached for the folder, opened it, looked at the top page without reacting. I was going to tell you, he said. When? He didn't answer that. Instead, he closed the folder again and set it down, more carefully than I had. You have a life, he said. A real one. This doesn't change that. It wasn't reassurance. It was positioning. I leaned back slightly. There's a name in there, I said. Someone else's. He exhaled slow. That situation was resolved, he said. Resolved. I let that sit. The word felt heavier now, like it had been used too many times to smooth over something that didn't stay smooth. I'm going to verify it, I said. That got his attention. Not visibly, but something in his posture shifted. A small tightening need, he said. I think there is. Another silence. Then, quieter. You don't know what you're stepping into. I met his eyes. No, I said. But I know I'm already in it. That was the moment something changed. Not dramatically. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't stand. Didn't try to stop me. But the control he had been holding onto, carefully, quietly, slipped just enough to make it visible. He looked at me differently. Not as someone he could direct. As someone he had to consider. I stood up, took the folder. I'll be back, I said. I didn't wait for permission. Outside the air felt the same as it always had. Nothing had shifted physically, no sign that anything fundamental had changed. But something had. I had a name that wasn't mine. A history that didn't belong neatly to me, and just enough proof to make it impossible to ignore. It wasn't closure. It wasn't resolution. But it was mine to decide what to do with next.